So what we're talking about, as we said, we're talking about the Rebbe said many times that the service is already done. So the redemption should come immediately. And in the same month, in Vayeshev, we continued. The Rebbe had a whole sikha dealing with this concept. And this is what the Rebbe said, right? I'm speaking English because we translated directly. This is a summary of where we stopped, basically. Based on all the signs, our generation is the final generation of the exile, and certainly the first generation of the redemption, because they already finished all the idea of service and already are standing ready for the redemption itself. By Mashiach Tzidkenu immediately. Yes, Shoalim. There are those who ask. The redemption requires the whole world to be ready, right? So not just one person or some people, not just part of the world, but the whole world. Because the redemption is dependent on gathering all the Jews from all over the land. We have to elevate all the sparks in all the countries. So how can we say that this generation, where do we see that this generation is more ready for the redemption than the previous generations? And so again, this can be understood when we're talking about the journeys of the Jewish people in exile from place to place, right? And in the words of the sages, God didn't exile the people among the nations except so that we have more converts. What does it mean? Because converts hints to the sparks of holiness that are found in every part of the world. And the fact that God exiled us in all these places is so that we can filter out the good out of the bad, filter it and elevate all the sparks. So Hashem did tzedakah for the Jewish people that he placed them all over the world. Because through this, we were able to do the service of elevating the sparks, right? So now let's go to our generation. Based on this, we understand the elevation of our generation compared to those before. In the previous generation, the Jews were not spread out so much as it is in this generation. Certainly not in the time that the Beit HaMikdash existed, when the Jews were all in the land of Israel or around it. Or even in the first generation of exile, right? The Jews only lived really in a few areas in Babylon and Yemen. Very few areas that they lived around Eretz Israel. Even so, it is certainly only in the top part of the world. In our generation, the Jews spread more and more until now, even in America, in the lower part of the world, right? And every generation, the Jews are more spread out. Until in this generation, there's almost no place in the world where there's no Jews. It's Chabad even in Iceland. So when you look at this, you see the elevation of our generation compared to those before. The fact that there is this filtering of every single country in the world, and by many signs, all the filtering already finished. So we understand why we're already in a stage of the redemption. And as we said, these things connect to the Sikha before in Parshat Vayetze, where the Rebbe says many times, after the great amount of things that we've done in our service for all the generations, we finished all these elevation of the spark and filtration. And we see this even in how the nations of the world behave, in a way of the kingship of kindness, right? And this idea of kindness towards others, caring about other nations, caring about their welfare. As sad as the war in Ukraine is, wherever you land on it, never has the world really cared about people in flight. Usually when a stronger nation invaded a weaker one, tough luck. Tough luck, we're so sorry. And Ukraine, you can't say there's not that big of a strategic importance to Ukraine from the perspective of America. It's not Taiwan, not even Israel. It's a country that in Europe, and even European countries are not that worried because it's a country in Eastern Europe. So, and yet they care. And yet the world cares about the plight of the people there. They care wrongly about the poor Palestinians. Even then, there's a mercy, illogical as it is there. But it's the idea of there's the world has a feeling of kindness, that they feel sad for, you know, not just the Jews are everywhere doing Torah mitzvah, we could see how their service in the Jewish people influences the world and elevates them. So we understand that we're already in a stage of redemption. Right? Hamayanot kvov too. The well springs already spread. Hagisha chasidit Geulah hi al afatzat Torah chasidut. The Hasidic way, how do we make the redemption quicker? Is we spread Hasidut, Hasidic knowledge. So the famous story, as we told before, of the Baal Shem Tov, where it was told that when Mashiach, he asked Mashiach when you're going to come, when your wellspring spread out. And so the Rebbe often talk about the spreading of the well springs, exactly. He said, this is the mission of our generation. Right? This is what the redemption depends upon. However, in the final years, the Rebbe talked about the completion of the service in all ways. In fact, several times he even talked about completion of the service of spreading the well springs of Chassidut. ומהם בשיחת שבת פרשת עקב תשנ"א, in עקב תשנ"א, he said, ידועה איגרת הבעל שם טוב מוסר את המענה של המלך המשיח על השאלה, הבעל שם טוב מתי יתימר לכשעפות אומרת החוצה. It says it's famous is the story of the Baal Shem Tov, where he tells the answer of the Melech HaMashiach about the question of the Baal Shem Tov, when is the master going to come? When is Mashiach going to come? When your wellspring spread out. So the coming of Mashiach is dependent on the spread of the well springs outwards. So the wellspring, the Torah of Chassidut should be spread and reach until the outside. The furthest things in creation, the most external. וכיוון שלאחר ריבוע פעולות לרבותינו נשיאנו עד עתה ותלמד חוצה בריבוע הכי גדול עד בכל חוגי ישראל כמה משיח עדיין לא בא. And as we see with the work of the rabbis up until now, as they spread the well springs further and further with greater and greater zest and more until it's heard about and known to some degree or another in every circle in the Jewish people. Mashiach עדיין לא בא, Mashiach doesn't come. Perhaps you could say there's another kind of Jews where the wellspring hasn't still reached them yet. We don't need to speak at length how much our Rebbes, the leaders of our generation, over generation, worked on spreading the wellsprings outward. It's easy to see. Starting with the revelation of the Torah Chassidut of Baal Shem Tov, there was an addition that was added in every single generation by our rabbis until this generation. על ידי כבוד קדושת מורי וחמי אדמו"ר מסידורנו, בפרט אחרי בואו לחשבון התחתון, חצי כדורי תחתון. It goes from every generation to the rabbis until and including especially our generation, where especially by the Frierdiker Rebbe, the leader of our generation, and especially after he came to the lower part of the world, to America, in a much higher way than it was even before that. Where if before, and this is me now speaking, before the Frierdiker Rebbe had Russia, some of Europe. When he came to America, he was able to spread it everywhere, right? You know, the spread far further. נוסף על כל הבירורים הספרים וכולי בפנימיות תורה שנעשו בדורנו זה, מיוסד על הכלים בפנימיות תורה שנעשו לפני זה. And all, in addition, all the explanation of the other part of the Torah that were added in our generation are founded upon the rules of the inner Torah that came before. נעשתה הפצת המלכות באופן שמקיף וחודר את חוגי היהדות הרחבים ביותר בכל מקום. So the spreading of the wellspring outwards in the way that it surrounds and penetrates all parts of the of Judaism far away all over the world and in every place. Jews from many different levels of life, and literally everywhere in the world. And there's been a Tanya printed in Mount Everest at this point. There's the shiurim, learn about Mashiach, learn about Tanya, learn about Chassidut, all in every country, in every place. Even more so, there's Tanya in Russian in our shul. There's Tanya in English. I've seen Tanya in Arabic before, that people were giving out to non-Jews in Israel. There's Tanya in French. I don't know how many languages the Tanya at this point has been translated. That's just the Tanya. I'm talking about even the other, the Rebbe's work.
Not so good. Not so good.
Says who?
Tanya.
Says who? Says who? I don't know. Maybe it was in Arabic for the Syrian Jews then.
Okay, good.
The Iranian Jews who still speak Arabic in Iran. Parsi, I don't know. But I saw it Tanya in Arabic in any case. The whole idea, right? So the idea, it approaches to every single person. It should reach every kind of Jew outwards. Up until the outwards that there is nothing further. באופן שכל אחד בישראל בכל מקום דרגה שהוא רק לא יהיה על כל פעמים הכוח ויכולת אפילו אם לא לעת עתה עדיין אין לו כל שייכות לגילוי זה להשתייך ולהתקשר מאוד החסידות בחייו. Until every Jew, no matter how far or where he is or what his abilities, even if right now he doesn't feel that he has such a connection to it, he's able to connect to the well springs of Chassidut in his own life. וכיוון שלאחר כל זה, כל ריבוי הפעולות ובצד המלכות צעד עתה בריבוי הכי גדול, משיח עדיין לא בא, and since after this and all the spreading of the well springs and in the greatest way, Mashiach still didn't come. אולי יש מקום מהחובה שעדיין נותר סוג בתחום מסוים בחוץ לשאלה ומה עדיין לא הגיע עד עתה. Perhaps you could say, seemingly, there's still some type or place or outside that the well springs didn't reach yet. ואולי זו המניעה האחרונה להתאימה. Perhaps this last group, this last place, is the final thing that's stopping the master from coming. Because the master, as we said, will come from the well spread, and the well spreads outward. V'alta b'dati savran, this is the words of the Rebbe, and I came in my mind an explanation, שישנו סוג שלם דאותיות הכתב שאליו עדיין לא הגיעו ממנו תורת החסידות, על פי הידיעות שהגיעו לכאן. That there's a special, there's a type of written letters that by it, the wellspring still didn't spread. But by the information we have here. For the people who, God forbid, cannot read. Their eyes cannot see. And for these people, they invented, who cannot see, a special writing called Braille, where the letters, you touch the letters. Until even a person who literally can't see letters, can't read, can feel the letters. This is the outside. Until how much more out can you go? כמובן, מזה גופה שלאחר כל שוב בצד החוצה של אדם הגיעו בכל מקום, לא הגיעו עד עתה במקום זה. And even if you say, perhaps they didn't reach that place yet, ועכשיו נתווסף חידוש, שבימים האחרונים הודפס ספר התניא בברייל. And the Rebbe says, but now there is a novelty that they printed the book of Tanya in Braille. ועל ידי זה נפעל חידוש במלמדות. And this is the outside. זה הגיע גם לסוג חדש דחוצה, והוא סגי נהור, until it reached such a level outside, that even those who can't see can now learn it. והגם שהתניא הזה לא הגיע לעת עתה לכל בני ישראל שכיחים לזה, and even though the Tanya did not quite reach yet to every single Jew who belonged to it, הרי עצם העניין שישנה בעולם מציאות של ספר תניא בברייל, the fact that there is a reality of a Tanya that's printed in Braille, זה גוף המביא את המעיין דחסידות גם בסוף זה לחוצה. That it means that this wellspring of Chassidus is already on that way out, even though perhaps not everyone who needs Braille has gotten the Braille Tanya yet at this point. ונותן האפשרות שלמעיינות החסידות תהיה גישה גם לאותם יהודים יוצאים רחמנא ליצלן במעמד מצב זה. And it allows the possibility that there will be, the Chassidut will connect and be approachable even for Jews who are, God forbid, in such a state. שבחייהם תהיה להם שייכות לתורת החסידות, that in their life they can also have something to do with the Torah החסידות. הרי עכשיו, לאחרי שכבר פעלו גם בעניין זה, בפרטות מלכות הדבר ברור, שתכף ומיד ממש צריכה כבר לבוא הגאולה מפני שמיים משיח צדקנו. Now that even you have Braille and the wellspring spread so far out, it's understood that immediately should come the true and final redemption. through Mashiach tzidkenu. It's the words of the Rebbe. וגם כאן מובן, כנ"ל שהבטחת בשבותה עדיין לפנינו. Now, I believe it. And even so, we understood the spreading of the well springs in its completion is still before us. שהרי מטרה הסופית היא להגיע למצב של מלאה הארץ דעת השם כמים להם מכסים. Why? Even though we spread so far out, the goal is to have the earth is full of knowledge of God like water covers the sea. אלא שלמטרה זו נגיע רק לאחר גאולה ושלמה, but we're only going to reach that level after the Geulah. We said this is the level after the redemption. כאשר לא יהיה שם לא רעב ולא מלחמה ולא קנאה ולא תחרות. When there's going to be no hunger, no war, no jealousy or competition. ואזי אכן לא יהיה כל העולם לדעת השם בלבד. What are people going to do? They're going to focus on getting to know God. Everything else is going to be done by robots. The only thing the robots won't be able to do is get to know God. That's my opinion now. That's not the book. וכאן הרבי מדבר על הפצת המלכות במידה דרושה עוד בזמן הגלות בכדי להיות ראויים ומוכנים לגאולה. And here the Rebbe talks about spreading the well springs in a way that is understood even in the exile so that they are worthy and prepared for the redemption. שהעבודה הזו כבר נסתיימה בשביל מה הגאולה כבר יכולה לבוא. And so again, the Rebbe says, the well springs that we've spread until now is already enough to bring the redemption. The fact that we still have the goal to get, that's after the redemption. We're already completed. So certainly it's already worthy. The service already completed. And so the redemption can already come and should come. Can and should come. All right. That was all right. And when we're dealing with this from an idea to an idea within the same idea. כנ"ל הרבי הריי"צ התבטא בזמנו שכעת הוא הזמן של צחצוח כפתורים לקראת בוא המשיח. We know the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, not our Rebbe, but the previous Rebbe, spoke that now is already the time where we're shining the buttons. ובשנים האחרונות כאשר הכריז הרבי שישראל עמדה התייחס גם רבי לזה ואמר בשיחת בית ניסן תשמ"ח, and the Rebbe talked about these shining the buttons, and he talked about the תשמ"ח. This is not even in Aleph. This is in 87, I think. Yeah, 87, because that's the year I was born. So, כבוד קדושת מורי וחדמי אדמו"ר נסידורנו פסק בשעתו אז שכבר נסתיימה העבודה. The Frierdiker Rebbe, the leader of our generation, Paskin in his time then, that the service already completed. And all that's left is to shine the buttons. And at that time, the Rebbe says, and since tens of years already passed, at that time it was more than 38 years. And it's been just about that many years since then to now. We're shining these buttons. How much? In our time, even the buttons, they're so shiny, we're done. There's nothing to shine there. We don't need to overshine the button. If you overshine the buttons, it's gonna spoil it. The button will not be as nice anymore. ומכיוון שכן הרי בוודאי שעכשיו צריכה להיות מוכרחת כביכול הזרזור של הקדוש ברוך הוא. Since God wouldn't want us to spoil these buttons we've been shining this whole time, certainly now should come and להיות מוכרחת כביכול, has to be, so to speak, the zrizut, the speediness of God, להביא את הגאולה תכף ביד ממש. God should bring the redemption immediately. עד כאן הובאו דברי הרבי עוד שיר עבודה. Until here, what we've spoken in the last parts were all the words of the Rebbe, besides my occasional insertion, commentary. שמסקנתם היא כנ"ל. הגאולה השלמה צריכה לבוא תכף מיד. What's the general conclusion of everything we've learned in this whole chapter is, based on the words of the Rebbe, based on understanding, the redemption should come immediately. וכנ"ל. And what we gathered is a very short gathering. There's far more times, and we could spend many parts of this book just going through every time the Rebbe said this. He brought just several examples. He didn't, but certainly there's many others that were not brought about this. ושיחות רבות הרב ממשיך ומוסיף, and many שיחות, the Rebbe continues and adds, שלא זו בלבד שהגאולה צריכה לבוא, not just the redemption should come, אלא שהתבוננות מתאימה אפשר לראות כיצד כל ענייני הגאולה כבר התחילו. But even that if you look properly, you can see how all the ideas of the redemption already began. ועל כך בפרקים הבאים בעזרת השם, and this we're going to talk about the fact that we could start seeing how the redemption already began. That's the sweet part we're going to talk about next week, God willing. Sikum. Summary. הרמב"ם באיגרת תימן נותן להביא שתקופתו את תקופה הראויה לבית המשיח. The Rambam in the Yemenite scroll explains that his generation was already a proper time for Mashiach to come. And he uses the fact that the exile was harder at that time. Muslims and Christians became stronger at that time. And there were false Mashiachs. And the fact that there was a Kabbalah from his forefather, the prophecy shall return in a particular year around the time of the Rambam, several, I think it was, I don't remember, it's 40 years maybe after the Rambam passed away, 30, 20. And he said, the Rambam says, there's no doubt that the return of prophecy is the preface of Mashiach. Now, based on the simple meaning of the word, we said the redemption is dependent on the tshuva of the Jewish people, right? The famous saying, the Jewish people will do tshuva and immediately they're redeemed. Based on the Kabbalah of Arizal, the Arizal said, no, let's go deeper. It's based on elevating the sparks of holiness through the Jewish service and to fulfill Torah mitzvah. Based on the Baal Shem Tov, the redemption is dependent on spreading the well springs outwards. שזוהי המשמעות הפנימית של עשיית תשובה ובירור ניצוץ. This is the inner meaning of doing tshuva and elevating the sparks. הרבי ראה ברוך ישעתה לתשובה לאלתר גאולה. The Frierdiker Rebbe said that Alter Tshuva, Alter Geulah. When we get to Tshuva, we get to Geulah. The Talak where they did the Tshuva. It's already time for the Geulah. All that's left is the shine of the buttons to come as Bo Mashiach. And the Rebbe in Tafshin Yud Aleph said that our generation is the final generation. He said this in the first year of his Nesiut. We're going to complete the service of Galut. Likrat Sof Shon HaMemim, in the end of the Mems, Bikar, the Malach Shnat Tafshin Yud Aleph Bet, and in the last years, 1990-91, he kept saying over and over again, the service of the generation is complete. Bnei Yisrael asu tshuva, we did tshuva. Every single part of the world has Jews who are elevating the place and doing Torah and mitzvot. The well springs reached everywhere. So the redemption has to come immediately. אמנם מובן שתשובה שלמה של כל מצווה בפועל ממש במטרה הסופית של מלא הארץ זה את השם כמים ליחסים תהיה רק בגלל שמה בפועל ממש. But we understand the true, there's still work to be done, and it'll be done even after Mashiach comes, even after the redemption. We'll still have to reach the level of the land knew God like water covers the sea. It's not going to Mashiach comes and suddenly we all get downloaded all of the information of Mashiach into our mind. We're still going to have to learn and understand. That's going to be only after the redemption, though. However, what we talked about here is the amount of tshuva and the amount of spreading the well springs that is demanded to be worthy to the redemption, and that is already done. All right, we're going to have a little extra. We can get a little addition. A midrashic discussion in a Hasidic clothing. בתוך הפרק ובו דברי הרב בשיחת ש"פ וישב בתשנ"ב, בה מדבר על פיזורם של ישראל בכל העולם כדי לברר ניצוץ של כל מקום. In the chapter we talked about the words of the Rebbe in תשנ"ב about the spreading of the Jews everywhere to elevate the sparks. ובקשר לזה יש לציין לדברי המדרש, כל דודין איזה בא זה מלך המשיח. בשעה שהוא אומר לישראל בחודש הזה אתם נגלים, אומרים לו, היח אנחנו נגלים. ולא כבר נשבע, הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא משעבדנו ב70 אומות. So about this, there's this words of the Midrash. The voice of my beloved, here he comes. This is the Melech HaMashiach. In the hour that he says to the Jewish people, in this month you are redeemed. And they say to him, how are we going to be redeemed? God swore that we're going to be servants to the 70 nations. And he answers two things to the Momelem. אחד מכם גולה לבבריה, ואחד מכם גולה לסמטריה, דומה כמו שגליתם כולכם. ולא עוד, אלא שהמלכות הזו נכתבת טירוניה מכל העולם, מכל אומה ואומה. כותי אחד, או חבר אחד, בא ומשעבד בכם. First of all, you had one exile already to the barbarism, another exile, symmetry, I think. I'm not sure of these words, I'm sorry. But it seems like you had two exiles already. Everyone was exiled already. And even so, you said you had tyranny. If you need the tyranny of every nation, one Kuthi or one person came and already enslaved you. It's as if you already served 70 nations. And this month you're being redeemed. This month, which month? This month is for you, the head of month, Nisan. Ad kan divrei midrash. That's the word of the midrash, except the last part, which is I said already about Nisan. What is this meaning of the words that of the Jewish people, God swore that He's going to make us servants to 70 nations, slaves to 70 nations. And what are these two answers of Mashiach? ובפרט בכמה שיחות הרב מפרש דברי המדרש בכותנו, אנו שהנשיא הדור מגלה כמלך משיח ומדינת ישראל גאולה קרובה. And many times the Rebbe explained the words of the Midrash about our generation, that the leader of the generation will be revealed like the Melech HaMashiach and announces to the Jewish people their redemption that's coming soon, as will be explained in the future chapters. So where did this kind of discussion between the Jewish people and Mashiach happen that is described in the Medrash? כמפתח להבנת דברים נוכל להשתמש בביאור החסידות במשפט אחד מתוך המדרש הנ"ל שבכמה מראים את הלשון, אחד מכם גולה לברבריה ואחד מכם גולה לסמטריה. There's the words that I couldn't quite translate properly. One of you shall be exiled to Barbaraya and one of you exiled to Semetraya. מבואר על כך שמטרו שבזור כנ"ל בשביל בירור נמצאות בכל העולם. What's the purpose of our being spread out is to elevate the sparks in the world. ועל פי ביאור זה מובן שכל הדו-שיח בין ישראל למשיח סביב סביב בירור נמצאות במכונת העולם גאולה. So the whole discussion with Mashiach is about the elevation of the sparks and preparing the world to redemption. אלא שהמדרש כדרכו תופן את הדברים באמירות פשטניות. The Medrash hides it in simple words. תורת החסידות כדרכה מגלה את משמעות הפנימית שלהם. What does Chassidut do it? It reveals what is the deeper meaning of the simple words. על פי הבנה זאת כוונה בני ישראל בשאלה נשבע הקדוש ברוך הוא שום משעבדנו בשביל מאוד. What is the deeper meaning of God swore he's going to enslave us to 70 nations? כלומר שהקדוש ברוך הוא הטיל לנו את השליחות לברר את כל אומות העולם. God made our job to go elevate all 70 nations. להכין אותם לגאולה, prepare them for the redemption. וטרם השלמנו אותו. And we didn't fulfill this yet. ועל כך עונה למשיח. This is the nations entered Mashiach. We haven't elevated them enough yet. Mashiach answered, תשובה ראשונה שמספיק יהודי אחד בארץ שלמה שקיים מצוות. The first answer, it's enough for a single Jew in a whole land to do Torah and mitzvah to prepare it for the redemption. So the fact that the Tobias has lived in South Korea and they did Torah there and mitzvah prepared South Korea. The fact that there's Chabad in China should have answered him. There's at least Chabad of China, and there's at least several Jews there who fulfill Torah and mitzvah on a daily basis, prepared all of China. ותשובה שנייה, שישנם בעולם מקומות מרכזיים שכאשר בני ישראל מתבררים ומתקנים אותם כאילו תקנו את העולם כולו. The second answer is there are central places in the world. And when the Jewish people elevate and correct those places, it's as if they fix the whole world. ועל פי זה נמצא שדברי מרש"י מהדברים שנאמרו בשיחת ש"ב וישב תש"ב. So back to the שיחה of פרשת וישב תש"ב, כי אותה שיחה נפתחת בהודעה. The שיחה starts with a message שכבר עומדים מוכנים לגאולה מתווה שלמה על ידי משיח תתקיים תכף ממש. The Rebbe starts the שיחה by saying we're already standing ready for the final and true redemption through משיח תתקיים immediately. ועל כך עולה השאלה שהרב מציג את השאלה מקהל. And now the Rebbe says, there are those who ask the question, the redemption is dependent on the world being prepared. We just said that was the meaning of the Medrash. There's 70 nations, we're supposed to elevate them, we haven't completed this. Now back to the Rebbe. The elevating of the sparks of the nations of the world. Where do we see this change? How can we see that in this generation the world is more prepared? The question and the message in the Sikha, the coming to announce the redemption, the question, how can it be the redemption, is the same in the Medrash. Mashiach announces you're redeemed. ועל כך ישראל שואלים, נשבע הקדוש ברוך הוא משעבד אותם בשביל מאוד, but God swore we're going to be enslaved to the 70 nations, to elevate all of them. ושם בשיחה משירה בייחוד שפיצר ישראל בגלות בשביל בירור הנצות. The Rebbe talks as well as we talked before, the whole purpose of spreading the Jews all over the place is to elevate the sparks, ונמצאים בכל מקום, we're everywhere. הוא מסיים כנ"ל על פי זה מובן החידוש של דורנו זה. יהודים נמצאים בכל קצווי תבל ממש. Jews are found in all areas of the world, literally. And fulfill Torah and mitzvot. When we realize this, even for a moment, we see the novelty of our generation compared to the previous generation. The fact that there is elevation in every country is the first answer. One of you goes Geulah lebarbaria. It's enough for one of you to be exiled to this to each place. One Jew is enough to elevate the sparks in every place. The Rebbe actually talks about France and the complete change in France since the time of the Alter Rebbe. Napoleon went to war against Judaism, against religious Judaism. They no longer respected the king, they no longer respected anything. Spiritually, it was the lowest place. And now, France is a place of Torah learning. The Rebbe says, with the elevation of this country, it's done and complete the elevation of every place in the world. The completion of the elevation of the whole world in redemption. Which is dependent and shown through the elevation of the enclosing of the exile of France. And this is the second answer of the Rebbe related to the Medrash. As one Jew in every place and a lot of Jews elevating a country like France, where to this day the French, there's so many Torah learners, such a big Chabad, so many Baruch Hashem. This is the elevation of one kingship that elevates and makes the world ready for Mashiach. Shkoch, may we merit to continue and learn about now what? The world is ready. Okay, Kol Tuv. We're going to continue, God willing, next week. Is next week July 4th? No, next week we will be learning. Yes, B'ezrat Hashem. So, we're going to learn about the redemption as a process. All right, Ishkoch.